be sure to check out Rob Plays. There you can hang out with me while we play video games and talk about life stuff. So what I want to do here is run over the events of Green Arrow Rebirth. And what I'm hoping is that at the end of all this, you'll understand exactly what it is that DC is doing with regards to the DC Rebirth concept and bridging the gap between the New 52 and pre-New 52 continuities. So as we had discussed in my rundown video of DC Rebirth, unlike common belief which held that the initiative was designed as a reboot, instead, because so many fans had continued their reading experience from the pre-New 52 continuity into the start of the New 52 proper with the various characters and stories they had grown accustomed to largely being thrown away in favor of a fresh start, on the whole, public outcry and decreased sales led to the launch of DC Rebirth as a means to provide a best of both worlds scenario. To this end, Green Arrow stands as one of the best examples of this ideology and the intention of DC. Written by Benjamin Percy with art from Otto Schmidt, the beauty of Green Arrow issue number 1 comes in the fact that we don't really need to know anything about its character. However, to provide a bit of meat and potatoes to our discussion, I want to jump back a bit to some of the changes made between the relationship between Black Canary and Green Arrow prior to and during the New 52. So like most of all DC's titles minus Batman and Green Lantern, Green Arrow was rebooted in its entirety with issue number 1 under the control of J.T. Kroll, with Oliver's relationships in past completely ignored. Taking a look at his stories prior to the New 52, Oliver Queen's history was one of the richest in DC's, including the 1961 to 1983 run of Neil Adams and Dennis O'Neil, Mike Grell's post-crisis miniseries Longbow Hunters as well as the subsequent 80-issue run, and Kevin Smith's 10-issue story Quiver, all of which came together to create hallmarks of Oliver's character, including the struggle of realizing his sidekick was addicted to heroin, the road trip adventures of himself and Hal Jordan, and the internal struggles of being extremely wealthy while operating as a vigilante, trying to fight on behalf of the poor and destitute. As a result, even if Oliver Queen wasn't a character fans could directly relate to by way of their own lives, his snappy comments and quick wit created a perfect storm of sarcasm and seriousness which was not often found within DC's larger universe. However, when the New 52 was launched, with DC looking to keep from creating what had already been done, Kroll's early stories in the first 3 issues established that Oliver Queen lived in Seattle. He had formed Q-Corp as a division within the larger Queen Industries, releasing technologies that promoted the company's financial growth while also funding Oliver's life as Green Arrow, in addition to removing his friendship with Hal Jordan, his relationship to Black Canary, and Roy Harper's heroin addiction. Instead, the run of Kroll and the subsequent stories from Keith Giffen, Dan Jurgens, and Ann Nesenti focused heavily on bringing the series closer to the show, a change which was neither embraced nor celebrated by critics or fans. Instead, the stories were met with near universal hatred from long-term readers who continue to view the series as a deviation from the source material they enjoyed, only finding reprieve in the introductions of Felicity Smoke and John Diggle as comic book counterparts to their television characters under the writing of Andrew Kreisberg and Ben Sokolowski. That said, with DC Rebirth serving to bridge the gap and maintain the universe enjoyed by existing readers but reach back to concepts enjoyed by older readers, Green Arrow number 1 brings us this goal in relation to Oliver Queen, including the return of the goatee. Moving away from emphasis on the Q-Corp, the story itself focuses on the return of Black Canary. As a character who debuted in 1947 with Flash Comics issue number 87 as part of the Earth 2 universe, while her early stories centered on operating as a sidekick to the Flash family, only stepping into her own in the post-Crisis on Infinite Earths continuity, one of the most well-known aspects of Green Arrow's history was his relationship with Black Canary. To sidetrack here, originally meeting in the Justice Society and Justice League crossover with Justice League issue number 21 in 1963, the history between Black Canary and Oliver Queen was actually a bit confusing. Because this time period in her character's history had her as the only Black Canary, the romance between herself and Oliver was never in question. However, following Jerry Conway's 1978 Secret Origins of Supervillains, because Black Canary was originally a villain, her origin was detailed in this book, establishing a definitive date of birth and age for her character. As a result, DC came to the conclusion that a suspension of disbelief wouldn't apply to Black Canary due to the fact that unlike the rest of Marvel's lineup, fans could not assume that her escapades took place within a confined time frame, owing to the fact that DC continued to include dates of reference in major events. And so by the time 1983 had come around in the years leading up to Crisis on Infinite Earths, DC introduced a second version of Black Canary named Dinah Laurel Lance, who was offered as the daughter of the original Black Canary known as Dinah Drake Lance, expanding on this idea and saying that Laurel had grown up watching her mother fight alongside the heroes of the Justice Society on Earth 2, and looked to follow in her footsteps, eventually adopting the moniker following her mother's retirement. Where this was an understandable idea for a short time, in 1986, following Crisis on Infinite Earths, as far as I've been able to tell, and somebody might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, cooler heads prevailed and the history of Dinah Laura Lance remained intact, keeping her as the daughter of Dinah Drake Lance and transforming the Black Canary concept into a mantle that was passed down from mother to daughter. As a result, the post-crisis relationship of Green Arrow and Black Canary experienced a series of waxes and wanes, focusing heavily on the struggles of the two as much as it focused on the lighthearted elements. Referencing back to Mike Grell's Longbow Hunters, with Green Arrow taking up residence in Seattle as opposed to Star City, the original miniseries focused on the torture and presumed sexual assault of Black Canary by a mobster, destroying her ability to use the Canary Cry, as well as her ability to trust men beyond Oliver. In addition to this, since the miniseries was released as part of DC's Vertigo imprint and was designed for mature audiences, the themes of the miniseries, including Oliver's willingness to murder, were carried over to the launch of Mike Grell's 80-issue run, which was also part of Vertigo, continuing the adult-oriented concepts and maintaining Oliver's ruthlessness. However, at the conclusion of Grell's run going forward, Green Arrow was thrown back into DC's official lineup, removing the adult-oriented themes and focusing heavily on his personal life in Seattle and his relationship with Black Canary. Coming out of the events leading up to and following Infinite Crisis, with Judd Winick taking over the position as writer following several substitutes after the departure of Mike Grell, whether it was due to practicality or fan demand, Winick elevated the relationship of Black Canary and Green Arrow from dating to marriage. As a result, the Green Arrow title was cancelled and relaunched as Green Arrow Black Canary, focusing entirely on the duo as a husband and wife superhero team, but facing their own personal struggles, including the kidnapping of Connor Hawke, the son of Oliver from a previous marriage, a crazy woman who is obsessed with Oliver, and the normal trials and tribulations of marriage. Leading into the rise and fall story arc, with the prelude storyline Cry for Justice seeing the second iteration of the villain Prometheus laying waste to Star City. After his murder at the hands of Oliver, Green Arrow took to tracking down and eliminating all villains who allied themselves with Prometheus, as well as Barry Allen, Hal Jordan, and Black Canary attempting to stop Oliver. Leading to a battle between the four heroes, with Oliver coming out on top and subduing his wife, the marriage between the two was effectively annulled, with Black Canary divorcing her husband and the two going their own separate ways. That said, when the New 52 was started, Dinah Lance's history was retconned entirely, removing her relationship to Oliver and instead replacing it with a veritable mess depicting her as a member of Team 7, which was composed of various individuals from different military agencies, Birds of Prey, which functioned as a joint venture between Dinah and Barbara Gordon, as well as a small stint as a rock star, none of which ever touched on or hinted at the idea of a romance between herself and Oliver Queen. And so instead of simply forcing the two together, the writing of Benjamin Percy gives us an organic transition in that with Dinah having operated as a vigilante in her own right, her adventures had led her into contact with Oliver under the assumption that she was kidnapping a child. Discarding her rags and revealing herself as Dinah, after taking the child back to Oliver's home and providing him with a bath, the discussion between the two is a throwback to their first encounter and her initial dislike of Oliver. Where the discussion between the two focuses on Oliver's extravagant wealth contradicting his stance of fighting for the poor, the depiction of Dinah as she's seen here returns us to the days before the New 52, and that she and Oliver complemented one another almost perfectly, with Dinah being headstrong and stubborn, while Oliver was relatively easygoing. In addition to this, with the child being homeless and informing both Green Arrow and Black Canary that his home resides within a homeless encampment referred to as the Jungle, and that his mother was kidnapped, their journey continues to see the two of them bicker, but also reveals that the young boy and the various others residing within the jungle are being taken prisoner by people they refer to as the Underground Men, who in turn take their victims for auctioning to various individuals, including the Court of Owls from Gotham. Now, because the emphasis of this story was more about bringing Black Canary and Oliver together again, the undercurrent stands as the start of an ongoing story arc, likely centering on Oliver's attempts to locate and destroy the human trafficking ring. To this end, Benjamin Percy actually wraps things up pretty fast by having both Oliver and Dinah kill the various Underground Men and send a message to their leader informing him that Oliver intends to destroy both him and his life. And so with the story coming to its conclusion, where Dinah had initially operated under the belief that these stories of Oliver's rudeness and immature nature were true, the pairing of the two comes together by way of Dinah realizing that Oliver had no problems taking both Dinah and the boy to his apartment and revealing his identity if it meant that the boy would be saved. As a result, the two officially appear to come together, setting the stage for the future of DC Rebirth within the confines of the Green Arrow title. With that being said, we're going to bring this video to an end. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and let me know how you guys feel about the DC Rebirth event, because I read all the titles that came out today, and they were amazing. And I will catch you guys later. Peace.